So in order to understand the future of work, we first have to understand a little bit about who this guy is. So this is Magnus Carlsen. He's currently the world chess champion. He's 23 years old, and he's the world's highest rated chess player ever. In fact, many consider Magnus to be the greatest chess player that's ever lived. What's really fascinating about Magnus is that he became a great chess player because of his ability to challenge convention, right? When most people think of chess players, they think of kind of corporate guys that are sitting across the table from each other. It's boring. It's, very mundane. Magnus changed all that around, right? He made chess exciting. He has an app, right? Which is unheard of for the chess world. He does modeling work, and he has a very unconventional style of play. Sometimes he'll make a move and then he'll take it back the next move afterwards. So he has this very, very unique playing style, which is all around challenging convention. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is challenging convention in the workplace. So we spend a lot of time within our organizations thinking about all sorts of things, right? We think about technology, we think about sales, we think about our supply chains, we think about marketing, we think about customer insights. But how often do our organizations and do we actually sit and think about how we work and how we get work done within our companies? So the three things that I'm going to talk about and the three areas that I want to encourage you to apply this notion of challenging convention to are how we work, how we lead, and how organizations are structured and how we build our companies. So if we were to visualize what that looks like, it would look something like this. In the future, in the center, we have this concept and this notion of the future of work. And around it, we have these three core ideas: how we work, how we lead, and how we build companies. And the one thing that binds all those together is this notion of challenging convention. So some of you guys might be thinking, why, right? Why do we want to challenge convention to begin with? If things are going fine within our companies, why bother doing anything differently? And so there are three unique opportunities for why we need to challenge convention around how we lead, how we structure our companies, and how we work. And the three key pieces of value that we get out of that is we're able to attract top talent, build and cultivate and foster the best leaders within our organization, and create competitive organizations.
Hey, really quick, sorry to interrupt you, but did you know that 96% of the people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed? Do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get notified when more videos just like this one are released. And now let's get back to the content.
All right, so those are the three key things that we get when we challenge convention in the workplace. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So this is the actual dictionary synonym for the word manager. The words in blue are actual synonyms from the dictionary for the word manager. Slave driver, boss, zookeeper, these are synonyms for manager. Basically, managers look a lot like this guy. Everybody here has seen Office Space, I'm hoping, right? Okay, good. So this is sort of the stereotype of what a manager is, right? And it fits very well with those types of synonyms that I just mentioned of being a slave driver or a boss or a zookeeper. Now, what about for employee, right? Again, actual dictionary definition, actual synonyms from the dictionary for the word employee. Cog, servant, slave, and there are, of course, many others that go along with that. So basically, an employee looks a lot like this guy. Pretty much most of us are living this Office Space type of world. Dictionary definition for work. The synonyms from the dictionary for the word work: daily grind, drudgery, struggle. Now, if we put these three things together, work really sucks. For the past 150 years, this is how we've been building our organizations. On the notion that managers are slave drivers, that employees are cogs, and that work is drudgery and the daily grind, right? You have employees that do something. If they fall off the wagon, you replace them. They're expendable. They're cogs. They're literally like cogs. So this is how we've been building our companies for the last 100 and 150 years. So why is this notion of challenging convention important today? There are 5 trends which are impacting organizations today, which are really forcing them to challenge convention in the workplace. The first one are new behaviors. Right? What do I mean by new behaviors? 5, 10 years ago, if somebody were to say, hey, you know what? One day you're going to live a very public life. You're going to have all your interests and your ideas up online for the world to see. You would tell them that they're nuts. But look at where we are today. We share our ideas on blogs. We put up reviews on Yelp. We tell people where we are on Foursquare. We provide real-time feedback to organizations on Twitter. We have our entire work history and resumes on LinkedIn. We live a very, very public life, right? So we have all these new types of behaviors. We expect to be able to find information easily. We expect to be able to build communities when we want to. These are all sorts of new behaviors that we have. The next big trend that we're seeing impacting organizations today is technology. And there are all sorts of technologies, right? Big data, the Internet of Things, automation in the workplace, all sorts of interesting technologies that are impacting organizations. Now, to give you an idea of the impact that technology is having on the workplace, we have to turn to chess. Around 1,000 years ago, a mathematician by the name of Sissa created the game of chess. Now, after he created the game, he went to the ruler of the land at the time and said, "Look, I created chess." And the ruler was very pleased and said, "Wow, this is great. Pick anything that you want and I'll give it to you." And Sissa thought about it for a while and he said, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to lay out a chessboard, which is 64 squares. On the first square, I want you to put 1 grain of rice. On the second square, I want you to put 2 grains of rice. On the third square, 4. And keep doubling it until you get to the end." And the ruler thought about it for a while and he's like, "What, are you kidding? You can have anything that you want. You can have a palace. You can have camels, horses. And you're asking for rice?" And the ruler says, "Yeah." Or I'm sorry, Sissa says, "Yeah, that's all I want. I just want rice." So the ruler says to his servants, "All right, figure out how much rice this is and give it to the guy. Let's get rid of him." The servants go away for a while and they come back and the ruler's jaw drops. It turns out that this is more rice than we produce globally today. This amount of rice would be the equivalent to a rice Mount Everest, right? That much rice does not exist in the world. So the story goes that Sissa then became the ruler of the land. So what's the point of telling you this story, right? What's the point of telling you the story about rice and chess? Well, it turns out that when you get to the second half of the chessboard, data starts to increase exponentially. And Ray Kurzweil from Google says that this is where we are now. We're at the second half of the chessboard, which is where data and information and everything that we create and produce is increasing at an exponential scale. For the first time, exponential growth that we're seeing around data. This hasn't happened before. The third trend that we're seeing is the millennial workforce, and Bill talked about this briefly in his keynote. So the millennial workforce, these weird alien-looking creatures that are coming down, that are disrupting all of our companies, right? So what's so interesting about millennials in the workplace? This is from the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, and what's fascinating about this is that by 2020, millennials are expected to comprise the majority of the workforce. By 2025, millennials are expected to be 75% of the workforce. What's interesting about millennials isn't just the fact that it's a group of people that have new ideas and values and expectations about work. It's the fact that the majority of the people in the workplace are going to be these types of people. So this is forcing organizations to rethink how they've been building their companies. Right? How they incentivize employees, what type of perks they're giving out, how they're structuring their companies, who they decide to promote as managers and leaders. There was an interesting statistic that I found in the book that's coming out in September, and it was something like 63 or 68% of managers are eligible to retire today. Right? 63 or 68%, that's a huge number. Guess who's taking the majority of those managerial roles? Millennials, right? More so than any other demographic group. Millennials are taking those managerial roles. You'll also notice that come 2020, we're going to start to see this new type of generation creeping in, right? Gen 2020. You guys think millennials are weird. Gen 2020 is going to freak you out, right? These are the guys that are going to be like teleporting to work. You're going to have robots that are, doing work for them in the workplace. It's going to be weird. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that yet. So this is my little brother, Josh. I use him in pretty much every keynote, every presentation I've ever done. Many, many thousands of people have seen him around the world. And he still doesn't know that he's in my presentations. One day he will find out. So what's really interesting about Josh, he's turning 22 this year. Now, Josh never went to school for film. He never went to school for photography. He didn't do any of the traditional means of learning how to do this. In fact, when I went to school, there were people that were spending $80,000 to $100,000 to get a degree in film and photography. So who wants to guess, how did Josh, a 22-year-old kid, learn how to do photography, learn how to do editing, learn how to do all these different types of things that you would need a degree in film to learn how to do? YouTube, right? Discussion forums, communities. He didn't have to go get a degree. He didn't have to go to school to learn how to do this. He taught himself. And then after he taught himself, he was able to, slowly build up his business and get these very, very expensive cameras. So this is the future workforce. So you have to think, is your organization ready for the Joshes of the world? I guarantee you that Josh has no idea what it's like to get 200 emails a day. He's never seen a cubicle. You show him a cubicle, he'll freak out. He just doesn't know what it's like. He's never seen that. You show him a legacy CRM system or, a legacy file sharing or storage system, he's not going to know what to do with it. He just doesn't know what that's like. He's never seen it before. And this is the majority of the workforce in the next few years. So you can understand why organizations today are starting to think about how they can challenge convention in the workplace. So is your organization ready for these types of joshes? The next trend that we're seeing is mobility. I love to travel. A couple years ago, I spent a month in China with a buddy of mine from college, and we traveled all over the place. We went to Tibet, we went to Beijing, Xi'an, Chengdu, all the provinces you could think of. And we went to some really remote places. And one of the places that we went to was Yunnan. And in Yunnan, there's a remote rice paddy field. So we went to this remote rice paddy field. We rented bikes. We're cruising around the rice paddy field. And we see that there's this guy out in the field. Just one guy. What was fascinating about this one guy is that he had a smartphone. This guy in the rice paddy field is able to access the same information, the same content, and the same people that I can living in the Bay Area. That's what mobility means to organizations around the world. It doesn't matter where you are. The theme for the future of work is connect to work. In other words, if you can connect to the internet, you can get your job done regardless of where you are. Whether you're in the Bay Area or whether you're in a remote rice paddy field somewhere in China, right? It doesn't matter. The fifth trend that we're seeing is globalization. Probably the simplest way to look at or think about globalization is this idea of doing business without boundaries. Right? No boundaries whatsoever. And no boundaries means that just because you're in one physical location doesn't mean you can't do business and transact and work with people in others. My company, Chess Media Group, is very small, right? Much smaller than I'm sure many of your companies are. Yet we have the ability to market globally, to bring on talent from anywhere in the world, to do business anywhere in the world, in any currency, in any type of cultural setting, right? In any type of geography. That's what globalization is doing to our organizations. We can work without boundaries regardless of where we are located. It doesn't matter.